Everything started with my presentation, and accordingly, we finish our evening with special format. Not often we have these kind of sections, and I hope that today we will organize this very interesting event. It's called Booth. It's informal discussion of this or that question, and the reason for this kind of discussion is site RIPEstat. Probably this project, so you have heard about this project. There are, by the way, some leaflets in the hall, and you can take it and use it. From my experience, I can say that. So, so I would like us to discuss first to introduce this to you to get some kind of feedback from you. Though it's informal discussion, please, if you have anything to say, just immediately you can come up to the mic and express your thoughts so that it's recorded. Because whatever you are going to tell me, that's important for the project in terms of what will happen to it in future. So what RAP NCC, I guess you all know, it's an internet registrar which works with LIR, RIPE Accordingly, LIRs fill in the database which is called RIPE and personal data, and that become the part of NCC. It means that from there regularly some information is coming, which is entered in the database in a structured way. Parallelly, RIPE NCC, by the way, in the whole there is a full rollup. It's not that rollup is quite right. It shows what RIPE deals with. It's not a register only. It's supporting root server, its research program, its academic program, and research programs like RIPE Atlas and RIS. They also use huge amounts of data. Those data do not disappear in the air after some research is over. They are accumulated, and they all exist. And that's a historic database, so you can do something with that. Accordingly, we have a database formal. There are certain results of various measures. It all is very interesting. Probably we could do something with that. RIPE uses it for its internal goals because there are some tasks that should be carried out. Certain tasks should be, some prognosis should be done, some assessment should be carried out. But the research can be good for certain communities, and so that these results somehow introduced to the community. A project website has been created, which is on https://ripe.net. Part is accessible to everybody. Some people need access through LIR portal. What do they use as a source? Not full list of everything, but still you can have an idea. Database of registers, RIPEDB, but not only. Other registers also incorporated, IANA database. Results of active measurements, RIPE Atlas. When you measure in RIPE Atlas for yourself, those data go to a common database and they remain there. And they can be used both for some other projects or in some other things when RIPEstat does some statistic analysis. These are results of active measurements from partners, BGP data that are collected in RIS on active elements that are in BGP routing, and they are saved in raw form. Those are DNS data, geo databases, various, and these are information on blacklists that are accessible to the project. Accordingly, the results are introduced either in the visual way or with widgets. By the way, the widgets that are actual, you can collect them and you can use them accordingly if you want to get some information from there. The information can be actual at a given moment. It can be also historic information. And this portal has also text interface. Very few people know about this. This text interface enables writing simple scripts using standard unique tools. Do you need that? This is why we came together. I wonder what you want. There is also JSON widget API, which gives widgets so that you can. There is data API, which works under JSON. From there you can get it. But if you want rice, it is there, and that's 50 plus widgets. Few people know that there is that much of information that you can collect from there. Which widgets are realized? Is the DNS, all kinds of so simple things. These are distribution of address space that is working with the address scope, and there is information about autonomous systems. Then you can have it also about routing, how it should look like. It's also a measurement such as from various parts of the output capacity, an instrument that is very much standard and very many people can use it. And you can turn to it as well. And there are certain, by the way, you can enhance them if needed, if there is a request from the community. The condition of the BGP ASP path, how they look like, all that exists there. And recently output capacity was added, and not that many measurements are conducted. That is, output capacity in the global internet is quite an intimate thing, and this kind of an approach is not that much used. But in RIPEstat it exists. RIPEstat it exists. By the way, if you look at this, you see 40 other widgets listed here. Simply scenarios that we know. NCC knows about these scenarios. BGPlay is just means that Nokia uses. Data that for operations, this is just a standard instrument. This is part of RIPEstat. Integration with internal system of monitoring with Nagios, this is also a standard story. That is, we know they use it. Using it for creation of reports, it's clear that all this being for reports that are sent to certain regulators. If you have certain queries or requests, so it's being used, but it's good, but it's not enough. There are also several stories that we're not ashamed to say it, that the interactions and collaborations quite long in good projects. And all this is number 2 here. Probably German Institute for Information Security. This is the oldest partner that gets quite a bit of information, and some other quite respectful organizations of projects that use RIPEstat for their purposes. We see that this instrument is quite useful. The problem is that there are clear understanding that there can be something better. We can give more. And the team of STAT is very much interested in getting feedback. What kind of information, what kind of research can be conducted, and how often they use BGPlay to see what is there, and also to rewind it like half a day back. It's not and we need to look what kind of picture is now and what was several before. But it's not actually, there are regular things that can be seen, like what kind of DPIs can be changed, and we can get the graphs, the information, what is necessary for. We need this information from the community. Then this is why we organize this kind of booth, so that we give you information that we are doing something, and we are not idling, and so that we understand what you need. This is what we plan. First of all, there are information sources that we haven't incorporated. We know about them. We haven't programmed their usage like OpenIPMap, GeoBase on the relevant principles, which sometimes work much better than commercial analogs. That is to give opportunity to users to compare various geoservices, which is quite an interesting story, and sometimes it can give unexpected good result. To add, at this point there is quite huge amount of operation, low level of operation. We can
какие-то вещи, например, там
we can. You have seen the results. So from when the information comes from set, we distribute it so that, let's say, the amount of autonomous systems that are registered, and then we really see them in the RIS. These are high-level researches. We have it, and we want to increase their number so that it's used by wide masses. We want to add analysis of comparing data with BGP and REST, and to see how the traffic is going. Like as Alexander Seven said, that it showed quite great difference between if we compare whatever is happening with the real traffic, and we'll see great difference there. And we need to do system analysis here. The results, you see a small portion, so that these results are available in mobile. There is a version for iOS, but for old iOS, on the new iOS, it doesn't work. We know that problem. We will set it. We need to make it not only for just for a tick for the mobile system, but we need to make it a functional instrument so that everybody uses it in the terminals. So kind of I told what we have now and kind of about our plans, expectations. I have clear understanding that probably we have something, but we need to first understand what you need. So accordingly, the question arises. So, do you have any questions? Prakhalenko, Asnet. The question: why is there a difference between the Atlas and raw BGP data? How can that happen? Alexander wants to answer that question, but actually the story is as follows. Besides the commercial technologies, they allow us to have a very tricky configuration. So some kind of filtration takes place, but there are certain specifications. There are quite a lot of things that you can see in the announcements, and they are related to the system configurations. What about the tunnels? Do you see the tunnels? Yes, mostly yes. Thank you. Sergei Mikhailov. RIPE, I have two remarks. Some incorrections in the present. Not only layers add information to the RIPE TV. Not only layers. Okay, I agree. Authorization, as we know, is not in RIPE portal but in special portals. there is a common authorization account. Then you said that you have 40 widgets, right? First, they work very slow and very badly. There are 50 plus. The 40 are the ones that I didn't name. Secondly, they work badly and they show very slowly routing data. By the way, wherever they do not operate, yes, I know what the problem is. You have an option when you give routing information through a huge service. Who is service? In my practice, uh, you have a lot of routing collectors, you have a lot of data, and you are not able to visualize them. Could you please do it so that we see them? And we do not have that many. In fact, there should be more. I understood that is you want us to enhance whatever is giving out to use, which is the information that's collected on the relevant places. And accordingly, one of the options to enhance widgets or by a separate service to make this kind of a looking glass from various locations, like what? A looking glass? Okay. Okay. I don't know how it looked like before, but that's not there. This much so far. If I remember anything, I'll tell you. By the way, that the session of exchanging information is not limited by today's ENOG or only by today. If something comes to your mind later, the last two lines here, see, on the next slide, here you see my email. So you can write to me, it's okay. But if you have something to say now, please, you're welcome. In fact, along with all this, in addition to this DNS traffic, right? We do not see traffic as of now. We only see. So whatever we have is the best now in terms of the line that is paralyzing. This is quite a lot. To do analysis, we need to have the copy of the traffic, and that's a tricky collaboration with the operators that we haven't achieved yet. It's in our future plans. But I understand the copy of the traffic for analysis. That's it. We need a special agreement. How many operators use flow specters? Very few of them. I know 4 operators that use flow spec, more or less, who have clients which are not super big. Among them, only one that gives it out without anything. So the rest requires some talking to them, discussion, coming to an agreement. Once we talked about the difference between RIS and Atlas, we suggest widget visualization of that difference, like widget visualization of access, the existing one. That is kind of integral story, not specific. No, not online. Kind of statistic during the recent, the last day or the recent week. The point 2 here, to put it roughly. This it's good. Simply, I'm trying to understand and what we will understand. You can't do it online. You see which of your upstreams has. Then you come to your commercial one and you ask them, should it be like that or shall we just kind of kick it? So the idea is clear to me. So all known projects, it's easier to get familiar. We haven't met before. A young project which actively uses RIPEstat. And if you come to my report tomorrow, you will see what kind of graphs have been done from the RIPEstat data. the application of the technology in practice. I have a number of questions. First of all, though some like historical data on routing or attaching autonomous resources from the database, ARIN or APNIC, they exist, but in RIPE there are certain gaps. Probably it's about interface. Unfortunately, it's not. Though I wrote letters, but it's not possible to set it up. So it's kind of once we talked about letters, I'll put I'll say something that has nothing to do with the presentation, but indirectly it has. Frankly speaking, currently on the territory that is officially called Transcaucasus, Asia, and countries of Eastern Europe, RIPE has two people who deal with their representatives of this region, Maxim Burtikov and your humble servant. Accordingly, our task, if there is certain application to RIPE, we can be the interface that can be the contact point. My responsibility is technical, and Maxim is rather deals with public authorities and major organizations, but we still work together accordingly. The first thing that I can offer is first send the letter to me. Okay, I'll go on with my questions. In fact, though in the presentation you mentioned that there is information in LIR, in fact, the information about RIPE, NCC, and in RIPEstat, that does not exist. That's why when we had Hishim's presentation about RIPE, NCC, so there aren't any connections with the LIR data. If there are autonomous systems, that kind of in coordination with membership with the RIPE NCC, it's missing. But in fact, it's not there. There is a separate list which sponsoring is not visible there. Accordingly, there is kind of a problem. If independent people want to compare it, it doesn't come with RIPEstat. Probably Dutch regulation forbids showing information about the members. It's their regulation, but our task is to understand what you want. There is a team, they have project manager, and so on and so forth. This will be a topic of discussion, but to take what the community wants to them. This is what we come together. Whatever you are telling, I'm taking notes. I'll convey it to relevant people. So Christian promised us to do that. You know what? In fact, he has very tight schedule and he can't come. He couldn't come here. One more question. If you use some kind of JSONs or P, so we want to request like packages, though either to request for everything in the package or some part of it. If there is any statistics about geography or some in a big country, the requests come quite long and quite many. Probably we need to cut it here. That is, you did I understand you right that we create a badge and we unload it and then we cut it and we can set it so that you get the relevant information. Okay, the last thing I want to say. So we want so certain research should be conducted by non-commercial organizations because the difference. So we are ready to cooperate with you, and if you have problems with Johannesburg, if you are loaded, so with our own resources we can help you. Thank you.
This is me. I have a request. I very much hope your your competence will help us to avoid a situation that existed in the past when we were reviewing one direction, when we had a question that services of right could not compete with business. Thank you thank, please, from this standpoint, if you explain the situation, because everything that we could develop, expectations are all different, but the principal point with them, I fully agree, and this is a very important point that this is community. This is secretariat of this community, and it is very important to understand that the union of the countries cannot destroy the. That's why the situation of internal situation should not sustain. For example, in this case, for me, a very good indicator is that whether there is a RGPBD play. This is a very good, useful instrument which yields many opportunities. There is a greater radar, which is a higher, with a higher analysis sort of, which enable us to. We have no competition because there is alternative products which are technologically more developed and we do not eat the database. The clientele database, Sasha Azimov, I hope very much that he will agree with me. Yes, while analyzing any data, it will be very important. In this case, I cannot understand when we provide with services which will be worse than any commercial software. In this case, I cannot understand why should we pay membership. I don't. If you write NCC will not do any trade, and nevertheless, a membership will have to be paid. I'm really sorry for this cynicism, because this is a different cynicism. This is not for RIPEstat. They pay for a membership. And in this plan, we have to understand that most of the members perceives membership as a payment for IP addresses plus payments for the additional services. Yes, this is the perception, but what that we jumped into the area of interactions of SSA community. What kind of open questions? This is not a topic of today's discussion. It's very difficult to compete. I would like to remind you that services exist within the service of community. So they are going to compete with the commercial services. BG Play is not competing with. This does not replace registers, but these are different services. These are the different sets of services. That's why they do not compete. But if the society has got a question, it means that we will have competition. I think that if there is a question whether this is a competition or not, it's not very difficult to get to the general meeting and to table this question there. This is an absolutely normal mechanism. And generally, this is a mechanism. I would like to invite to the member groups. This is the final point of Philip. And indeed, there is a working group, and if you feel that you have strength and wish to permanently work for the improvement of some mechanisms, and we have to participate to the working list. So that you have grown up. If you have this kind of feeling, we should not be here. And you have to permanently work on the generation of something new for the entire community. You don't have this kind of committee met, in particular, not services. There's nothing, but nevertheless, colleagues, here at this point, there were 4 people standing at this microphone. I hope that this information would be interesting for a broader scope of participants, but only 4 people were actively participating in things. So the steering committee is not created for love. When we have permanent activity from several people who generate something, and it is formalized within the framework of steering committee or a working group if you feel like doing that. NCC does not create a working group. A working group is created by community. This is not this part, but your. If you have a working group, then within the framework of the working group, we can organize it. If not, then I'm really. You know, what's the point? I would like to ask you, dear Hans-Peter colleague, have you ever thought about creating a working group, but there are no members for it? Probably it sounds somehow silly. That's why. First, I think about members. If there are people who say yes, we want, only after that we can come to a place. Alexander. This is not the topic of it. So, repeat, Hans, misinterpretation. Please repeat your point. Dima, be my proxy. I'm sure that you can do that. You will be my proxy. We still discuss instead of discussing. Instead of discuss and not discuss about money. We are going to selling the skin of unkilled bear. If everything is been fine. Very brief, and we will complete it. In fact, what if someone was? There are different units inside RIPEstat, and there are various developers. They do not exact agenda. For example, they have nice webinars. Maybe there is a point to organize something like webinar. There were webinars about RIPEstat. If there is a request, it's not very difficult to write. We can organize, especially then when we had a webinar. This is not something new, so there is no need of starting everything from scratch. If you need this, we can organize this, and we will hold this kind of webinar. You spoke about mobile version of iOS. You know, again, it will be replied. So naturally, when we get to the complete work instrument for the platform, but this is in the stage that when you have to take it and you have to redo it anew. Not design and not redesign from the scratch, but what to design. So interface is well understood, but we have to translate it to human language. Colleagues, do we have anything to say, or we have to eat finally? Okay. 1 second, Seryoja, you wanted to say something? You wanted something from me? Or what? Jonas, how's this, the dinner? Colleagues, I understood the request. It's very difficult to switch in between different contexts. On the site of ENOG, we have got a special domain for the reports, for the presentations, but it's very important for us to understand this happening, what you like, what you did not like for the next instant to meet your expectations. Please do not be lazy enough not to do that. If you will browse ENOG 12, you will see a link to the rating system. Please rate what was the most interesting for you, what was the most useful, in order to have kind of joy in your life. This is very important for us, for the organizing committee. And one more thing, we have public group in Facebook. This is public. This is an open for anyone who wishes to join the group. Anapatisha. So join this group in a less formal, in an informal environment. You can just 1, 2, 3, 5. This is formal history. If you want to say something, not globally, maybe something. Well, it doesn't really matter, but for free expression of written there, this is something that is taken into account. Is there something to tell? We're done. Thank you very much indeed. In 20 minutes, we have got an evening of informal socializing, i.e. dinner. It will be in the restaurant Sirani. So we have to drive in a bus, as I mentioned before. They promise us buses. In 10 minutes, starting from 7:30 p.m. and back every 30 minutes. The early one at 11, the latest one at 1:30 a.m. So plan your time according to that. Thank you very much indeed.